All I do is roleplay as cards, so, you know.
Oh, I don't have my wallet on me. I was about to show you how to acquire Mofu. You pull out your wallet, you swipe the credit card.
That's right.
You put your hands together, you rub them, and you pray. And sometimes Mofu will happen.
Gotta point out, Sheepy putting up the good luck sign. I like it. Very sportsmanlike of him. And now we get to see the one thing that I think Sheepy was counting on, and that's Akamarured bringing D-Shift, as this is one of the decks that he brought last week. So I think this is the one matchup that Sheepy is designed to win. And this is a hard matchup for D-Shift. Talk to me about this, Mofu. When you're D-Shift, how do you beat aggro blood?
I think there's actually only one window for D-Shift nowadays to beat aggro blood. And even then, it's not really that consistent. I think Chimera and Golem Assault are just these two cards that make you able to tempo swing the game back against your opponent, make them slow down just enough for you to get to the turn where D-Shift is active. But if you don't get an ideal situation like that, I think this is just always handed to blood. Because even behind wards, even behind owning the board against the opponent, blood just has so much damage that you just can't prevent. A lot of it doesn't come from followers, a lot of it's burn, and Sheepy's list contains all of that.
Yeah, and I think one of the situations that you get put in as D-Shift, regardless of your game plan against blood, is a lot of times you can stall for that one extra turn to then go off the following turn, but it's always a prayer situation. It's always, please don't have that Razory Claw in your hand, or please don't have that one extra piece of, you know, anything to just kill me this turn. Just brick this one turn, and then I'll win. And I feel like you get into that situation more often than not in this matchup. It almost always feels that way.
Mm-hmm. It also almost always feels like they never actually brick. Like, they could be down to one card in hand and it's always Razory Claw. Just for how long blood can hold all of its damage options, it's so rough for the Rune player every time.
To be fair, this is the matchup where I Golem Assaulted in Chimera without ever drawing a Dimension Shift and actually won the game. I literally just 6-play pointed the Golem Assault, played all 3 of them behind 2 Chimeras, and I said, let's go. And my opponent, I was at 3. Granted, I was at 3. My opponent only had 1 card left in hand and did not have the Razory Claw, so then I ended up winning that game. So it was very, very, yeah, just crazy. You always have to pray. I don't know. I can't see situations where you don't unless you get really lucky.
Yeah. I think I actually assumed this when you said it. I think the main class against which that works the best is Sword, which can put up like a similar amount of pressure to blood early, but they just lack that damage through wards. But I think Sheepy's list, I'm pretty sure he runs a single copy of Demonic Strike, is the level of burn we're talking about.
Yep.
And only 2 Golem Assaults. I very often seen 3, but only 2 in this list we're watching now. It may just be difficult to find anything to defend himself with.
Yeah, I feel like some players are still opting for Conjure Golem in their deck, and I think it's good. I just don't know if it's good enough to play over more Golem Assaults because of how effective that card can be. It's essentially a second win condition, like you said earlier, in D-Shift, to where you can actually just win the game without a D-Shift, or it makes your D-Shift easier to win with, because then you just go 1, 2, 3 with all 3 of the popped Golems, and then you can D-Shift with that, and that's already 9 damage sitting in play, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, yeah, I find Golem Assault to be so good in D-Shift right now. Pretty much all the cards I thought were bad in the deck, like Chimera and Golem Assault, I'm just like, you know what? Those cards are just great in D-Shift now.
Right. Now, do you think that's because of the card that we see right here, Magic Owl? I feel like this single hat-wearing owl is like the glue that was needed to make cards like Chimera just suddenly work.
Oh yeah, I mean, Magic Owl is insane. It is insanity. So like before, Spectral Wizard was a thing, but you can do the thing that D-Shift likes to do with cards like this, and that's evolve it and then Kaleidoscopic Glow it to get another use out of it, and it gets a full stat line. You know, and it only costs 2 just in general, so you can play a lot more cards around it on the same turn. It's just, this card single-handedly made D-Shift relevant again. I really feel like.
Hearing you describe it actually made me sad for a moment when it really occurred to me that Spectral Wizard evolves into a 3/4 to do the same thing that Owl does. So Owl just...
clearly
Just
the
appeared.
Spectral Wizard did not get the right training in school.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a pretty
Either
smart
that or
looking
the
model.
owls are just way more powerful than the wizards. That could be the case.
And this always interests me sometimes when like an entire archetype of a class like D-Shift, it just everything changes due to the printing of just this bronze 2-cost follower that I actually had overlooked.
Right.
I
Right.
overlooked this card the moment it was revealed. I thought we'd already had a lot of cards like this, or it might not replace Levi, and I'm amazed that it has actually replaced sometimes both Levi and Sorcery Cash.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely insane for a card like Levi to be outvalued in evolution by a new bronze, as you said, 2/2 random follower. Levi's been a
Right.
staple in D-Shift for, how long now? I don't care if you're
Since
running
he
1 Levi,
came out,
2
yeah.
Levi's, 3 Levi's, whatever, just to deal with aggro. Like, it's always been this necessary thing. It's a way to get extra damage done to your opponent. You can spell boost with it. It's so flexible. Just to get simply replaced by a card that does what D-Shift likes to do best, and that's just straight up spell boost.
Mhm.
I'm not doing this for you.
I think this is a really strong development for Sheepy's position here. I think it was just taking a long time on turns that made it feel like that owl was on board forever.
Right.
But Sheepy has full dominance of the board here. Akamaru, I don't see a very clear way to negate a lot of damage in his hand. I
No,
don't
and
think that he has...
Disagreeable Demon is possibly one of the best anti-D-Shift blood cards because of what we saw that second one do and becoming a 4/3 for 3.
I don't think that Akamaru has a way to deal with it. The Fiery Embrace is out of reach for him, no matter how he spell boosts this turn.
Well, he can. He's got Angelic Snipe hiding away,
Wait.
tucked under the play points over there, and then he's got Magic Owl freshly drawn. So he can
Right.
utilize both of those to take care of the bigger parts of this board anyway.
I did a quick Spy Kids enhance on the cost of the Fate's Hands there, so he actually can develop a lot this turn that I didn't see at a glance.
It always feels bad when you have to evolve your owl to get your Fate's Hands playable, as opposed to the other way around, as in just playing your Fate's Hand and then evolving afterwards. But this set him up into a situation where he could deal with so much this turn.
I swallow everything I said. I think that was an insane turn for Akamaru.
Yeah.
That single turn might have won the game, depending on how Sheepy develops the next few cards.
That's right. I mean, he does have a way to deal with this, as well as push more face damage here. I think he should still do the same play that we've talked about before. Use 1 Evo this turn and have a guaranteed Evo on the Blood Wolf next turn. But I don't know. People don't like my style. That's all right. This is definitely not a bad idea. This definitely opens up for Caraboss and things like that to be drawn.
I think it's a very smart way to guarantee you can transition Evo points into damage all the time. But I think Sheepy right now, what we see from him here is him just saying that he has to go all in, and that if he misses a single point of damage, he's just not confident that he'll be able to draw into much more of it. Because his list is actually close to the ground on cost. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say his... close to the ground on cost. He doesn't really have much to convert all of it into other than Caraboss later. Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. The only thing I was going to say about this particular board state is Sheepy could also be on the read. You just use your Fiery Embrace. If you don't have any low-cost removal, period, like this could just be a turn where you just don't have it, right? Like you don't have a Merlin, you don't have another Owl, you don't have any Wind Blast, and you maybe Kaleidoscopic Glow is your best out, and that's not really a great out here.
Seems that's really the case. Other than the Merlin, he has options, but they're just all not low enough. Blood Wolf is a huge draw here, I think.
This is great. This will basically push Akamarured into the point of, okay, Sheepy's now in top deck mode. I have to start putting up defenses if possible, or win immediately because I have no more time left. A single top deck can be game winning for Sheepy at this point.
Even just resolving a Caraboss, even just top decking that 1 copy of Demonic Strike, this is range, and he's telling Akamaru to solve this in only 6 play points for just a chance at getting away from all this damage.
So this is the situation that I was kind of talking about. So say for instance that turn 7 D shift was possible, right? In what Akamarured is as his hand is composed at the moment. Say he deals with this entire board. You still have to sweat that one turn. Every single game, it always feels this way. Unfortunately, I think that Akamarured can't even deal with the board effectively this turn. So this might just be it.
I think his last hope is this Kaleido into the Chimera.
Oh, is the
And this is
Chimera
really
active now?
classic.
It is. Okay, so he does have a way to
Just
deal with
barely.
it. So this is
I think he
it.
actually has to use the cash on it.
Your time, girl.
Makes sense. So this is literally the situation I talked about. This is just how it feels.
Right. Two goblins.
Are either
Didn't need to
D-shifts
roll one more
castable?
time there. No, they're both still in the double digits.
Because this could have been a clean Chimera attack face, D-shift attack face.
We've seen that situation happen before, actually. So off the top of my head, I think the only way to survive this situation might be attacking with the Chimera. He can put one Guardian on the board. I don't think taking one damage off of it is going to make a difference. By clearing a Goblin, I mean.
Yeah, this is put a ward up, attack 6 face, and pray one more turn.
He can reduce Fiery Embrace to 1 if he goes for that Guardian line. Oh, it's 0 actually. I didn't notice the Fate time was at 0. So he can clear one Goblin, hit 6 face, and then leave it all in the hands of what Sheepy top decks. Karabos won't do it. Really just comes down to finding a piece of significant burn.
Here we go. There is something to be said about clearing board here because D-shift is castable next turn. So the board state, you're just winning regardless next turn.
Mm-hmm.
And Sheepy bricking 2 times in a row.
Goblin
Oh my goodness.
into Summon Bloodkin. A 1-2 into 2-1-1s is just not enough.
Akamarured takes a very well-earned breather after navigating D-shift against aggro blood.
To be fair, looking at this list, really it just had to be one of the few pieces of burn remaining, that being a Demonic Strike. That double clear set him outside of the lethal range of Snarling Chain. But really, another Blood Wolf wouldn't have done it. It had to be Razor Claw or Demonic Strike there.
There we go. Akamarured essentially getting that ward out on the turn that it mattered. And really just hoping that he bricked. Yep, that's all I can say about that matchup. It feels like it every single time. We saw it here. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think that aggro blood is just that one turn faster than D-shift, unless you run out of gas.
That particularly interests me because usually I see decks like this. Well, he didn't find it that game, but they pack Karabos to try to navigate as much around that position as possible. But when that's your only source of card draw without things like you mentioned before, Blood Pact, you can just find yourself in situations where you're praying you draw that last bit of burn, or everything else in your deck is just really it does nothing for you, and then you've lost.
Come on.
I really think that, you know, some of the players in this tournament, even Akamarured sitting here, but his blood got banned, opted to start putting Staircase into blood for that very reason. I mean, we saw it used to great effect, especially in our first match, where we were just like, wait, how did this deck just win the mirror? But Staircase is just a really potent card, and I don't think it's been adopted by every deck the same way that Angelic Knight hasn't been adopted. Some players like it, but not everyone puts it in their deck. Just little slight things to notice from these competitive players today.
Right. I find all that to be so interesting because these are cards that, especially in the case of Angelic Knight, it's quite a simple card. It's easy to overlook how much can change certain matchups. But that said, this is a matchup I've actually not seen happen too often, the Dirt Burn versus Shadow. I'm used to Burn, or Dirt Rune in general, having an immense advantage over every Shadow list, but that has changed over time, because cards like Petrify, Calamitous Curse, and the like, which just slaughter Shadow, aren't really used anymore in favor of a Burn-oriented sort of game plan. Do you have any more information on that?
Yeah, this is just basic, straightforward stuff. So Levi is still really good. I mean, it still does a great job of clearing the board before Nectar turn, right? And I think Akamarured kind of has that notion built into his head. He's playing Andriolphus in his deck instead of more aggressive 2-drops, right? So he's looking to go longer in the game. He's also playing that single copy of Deathly Tyrant that we see in his hand in case the game goes, you know, exceedingly long. Unfortunately, that game plan does not fit well against Burn Rune because it really doesn't give you that much time. And if you're trying to build into this super late game style, then Mutagenic Bolt could come down and ruin literally any plan you could have. So this will be an interesting match. I mean, the ebb and flow of Shadow versus Burn Rune has been that Burn Rune generally is better. But yes, some percentage points did come back because, like you said, Calamitous Curse and things aren't like overwhelmingly being used anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Professor of Taboos being another great mid-range breaker that we just don't see very often anymore.
Right. I think maybe even that just comes down to the fact that both of those cards cost 6, and neither of them outweighs the value of Levi, for obvious reasons. He's the only one of any of them that pushes that huge amount of damage face in a deck where that's the central strategy. And Mutagenic Bolt is an answer to a lot of things that still pushes damage in the way that they don't. So it's while it can be played as a value-oriented deck, it's just not really the type of time to be like grinding for value, it seems.
Right. So realistically, it's if Akamarured can stem the early aggression. That's the most important thing. Because if he can, then he can race the burn that Sheepy has access to. If he can't, then he's literally just saying, I have to win before my opponent can burn me out. And realistically, against Burn Rune, we know that you don't have a lot of time when you get like sub 10, sub 8 in that range.
Mm-hmm. And we already see Sheepy developing towards a Master Mage Levi if he can navigate this turn without using up an Earthright, which I think justifies going for Carl alongside Piercing Rune pretty effectively.
Ooh. I think I would have opted for the Piercing Rune too, yeah, because this is saying, you know what, Akamarured? You can take out my sigils if you want to.
With a hand with a Halo Golem and a Master Mage Levi, that takes a lot of confidence actually, because Magic Illusionist, this is his main downfall sometimes as a card. He's sturdy, promises a lot of damage, but he can disable everything else in your hand like we might see happen here. I don't see a backup plan if he loses these sigils.
Right. And I mean, if you play that, oh, he doesn't Evo it, he Evos the Carl here. Interesting. This is probably just to play around the Chimera being easily able to attack into the evolved Illusionist, and this does not make for a profitable attack. So yeah, this is a good Evo.
Mm-hmm. So alongside Zombie Party and just really, so Soul Squasher is something he went for. I think he can still play Zombie Party and just evolve something. Actually develops the Catacomb, so he's not able to fully clear out the sigils this turn from Sheepy.
Very big benefit to Sheepy here. But Akamarured, in turn, doesn't really just straight up lose to Levi anymore because he'll just get a crazy amount of skeletons to back it up if that Levi does hit next turn. Which sets up perfectly for an Nektar turn. So I think this might just be an Evolve face here. Maybe not an Evolve, but he could.
At the very least, I think he's going to need to start to push a lot of damage soon. He used up a bit of his early Shadow gain on that Soul Squasher, which puts him significantly farther back from Tyrant. Especially in lists like this, I think it takes a long time to get that many Shadows, so every time you activate a Necromancy, it's not the same as Atomy, who can just rack it all up really quickly.
Right. So I think this is just going to be a full board clear here. I think Sheepy's going to go a little defensive here, which is good. This is the turn you need to play defensive. And if I'm Akamarured, I'm realistically just thinking, why did I leave him both the sigils going into the Master Mage Levi turn? But apparently he has a game plan around it, doesn't care much.
He could use all those shadows to develop a very, very powerful Yaktar here to flip the board back in his favor. But that does set him a bit further away from his win condition, as Sheepy still has a lot of his leader's defense left.
That's right. These players playing very cool and calm against each other. No player going outright aggressive and just like pushing damage. Little trade here, little damage there. This is true of classic mid-range matchups against two very, very skilled players.
Mm-hmm. So I suppose the question on Akamaru's mind is whether he wants to go for the zombie party instead of the actor, perhaps?
Right. Oh. Okay.
Develops the Lurching Corpse. I think he could be playing for Shadows here as well.
That's what it looks like to me. It looks like he's playing for that Deathly Tyrant win. And I think that Ektar is just going to stay in hand as a resource if he needs it.
Mm-hmm. It's very rare that I see a player... Yeah. It's very rare I see a player stay at such high defense going into turn 7 against Burn.
Yeah. And he's doing it well. And like I said, Mutagenic Bolt just drawn now. So now the options for Akamarured are actually limited. If he ever goes wide, he's got to be careful. But at the same time, Sheepy doesn't really have a board anymore. So if he ever Mutagenic Bolts, he has to be aware of Ektar lethals. So, and there's no Wizardess of Oz in Sheepy's hands, so no way to reduce cost these cards. So he's just going to have to play a very straightforward, just, I got to deal damage over time game plan at the moment.
Right. He has a lot of sources of burn. If he chooses to, he can go for Carl into Halo Golem. Akamaru's board is quite small, which can be one of the most difficult things to deal with Shadow. Every small body that's resolved and can attack is a lot of threat and damage from Ektar, but that doesn't by itself often lead to meaning that you can afford to throw away all your removal and burn on everything.
Right. But I think Sheepy has the tools. It really just depends on how Akamarured plays out his hand. So if Akamarured doesn't give him anything to work with, then it might be Akamarured slipping away like turn by turn with just extra advantage.
Mm-hmm. I think at a glance the one thing I'm concerned about in Akamaru's case is that changes it a lot actually. Just the development of another Demon Eater. I was thinking he doesn't want to play Yakdar or Death's Breath if the game plan he's going for is developing this Tyrant. Because it takes him so far away from it, it means those cards he plays need to have a lot of value that gets him those shadows back.
Okay, well he decides to cash in now with 8 of those shadows to clear board and push 6 damage here. This is not a bad play by any stretch of the imagination. This also says Mutagenic Bolt's not a great answer to me because now I'm ahead on board. If you guys want to learn how to beat Mutagenic Bolt, get ahead of the Dirt Rune player in life total and board presence. Easier said than done in most cases.
Mm-hmm. Even here, he's locked out of the Mutagenic Bolt just because I think that leaves just enough damage, or 1 damage over, for the Tyrant to kill him without needing any additional damage, or without even activating his Necromancy even. He has a lot of damage in his hand otherwise with tools, but I think it would take a Wizardess of Oz to push all of this out in a timely fashion.
Mm-hmm. And now if Akamarured just plays calm and steady, doesn't like overcommit, doesn't do anything crazy, I think he can walk away with this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, it feels really good to maybe play like a Death's Breath here and, you know, like feel super safe. That's not safe against Dirt Rune.
Perhaps he might try to develop his Demon Eater once again, look for some more options without committing too much to board. Because just one more hit, just a little bit more damage, and that Deathly Tyrant is just enough reach.
Yeah, I almost like Bellinus into Demon Eater, see what my options are, and then play out the other Bellinus. And just keep it nice and slow.
So if you're Akamarured, what are you afraid of here in a situation where you're at 7 defense left? How do you find that reach?
Wizardess of Oz, crazy. You know, Wizardess of Oz
really
going absolutely crazy. That's it.
I think he's doing as you suggested, finds another Demon Eater.
Yep, and then just be careful, right? So, like, maybe play out the Lurching Corpse here, and then pass, or just pass. I think the Lurching Corpse is a good option, because if that 3-4 dies, he still needs the 3 damage in play. Opts for the Bellinus. Okay. Also a fine play.
I think he actually only needed the 2 damage, because Deathly Tyrant, I never remember its stat line sometimes, but it's a 3-3. So as long as Bellinus or the 3 survive, he's good.
Right. The other way would have been if the 2/1/2 survived with the Lurching Corpse and the Demon Eater.
Mm-hmm. And Carl is not Wizardess of Oz, so I think Sheepy's in a really tough position here. I don't think he's lost. There's ways to navigate this.
Let's see. So if he gains 1 here, goes to 6, he can Evo the Carl into the 3/4. If he does that, he's at 6 versus 3, so he still has to clear. He would have to demonic strike the 2/2. Okay, it looks like that's what he's doing.
Holy magic is safe. Gaze into the light.
Narrowly skated his way out of Tyrant. It's weird to talk about how much a player has to escape the range of Deathly Tyrant when there's no threat almost whatsoever of the Tyrant actually activating.
Right.
He's
It's
effectively
just, the storm
playing
damage.
around Alwithus, yeah.
Yeah, it gives an effect to Shadow that Shadow doesn't normally have. Like, gone are the days of Phantom Howl, and in are the days, apparently, of random Deathly Tyrant.
Are you defying me?
And now Akamarured just has to present the exact same board state turn after turn, and not really worry too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's playing this line perfectly.
Halo Golem. I think it's more burn that has to be used defensively here, because he's just been out of
unfortunately.
reach.
This is Halo Golem to kill Necro Assassin into... Yeah, like, you're basically just in this train that Akamarured is putting you in of, you have to deal with my board every single turn. If you don't, you die. If you try to burn my face, you die. So I think he's got him pressed up against the wall perfectly here.
Yeah, I think his last few turns especially have been played beautifully. I just noticed that if he had committed the Death's Breath last turn onto the Necro Assassin to try to present more lethal than he needed, then that would have handed the game to Sheepy right there. That would have been it.
Yep. It's absolutely correct. Now, this is a tough spot for Akamarured again, right? Because he needs to deal with that 4/3. He doesn't have lethal. And he doesn't want to overcommit to the board. And there he goes. Perfectly. Doesn't get the value off of the zombies. Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Here we go.
Could be big, but if there's any chance that this Wizardess of Oz is not going to be good enough, it is entirely contingent upon Akamaru's last play, and then he just denied a lot of damage from that mutagenic bolt. Not a single spell.
Oh my goodness. He does have a way to redraw cards and to put a ward up.
The ward's a big deal, I think.
It is a big deal. He doesn't have any straightforward ways to deal with these followers, even if he wants to mutagenic bolt, though. So... Oh my goodness. Drawing your Wizardess after you've already played a handful of spells feels pretty bad, and then drawing into no spells afterwards, oh my.
It's so unfortunate. He has tools at the very least. I think the Scrap Iron Scarecrow and the Levi could be huge. Akamaru's hand has been, he doesn't really have anything that strictly deals with bodies anymore. The Tyrant damage is prevented effectively by the ward unless he draws into something more. And he's still in that situation where he can't present too much.
So this is the big turnaround. I think Sheepy's really just deciding, do I really want to play this mutagenic bolt or not? If he does, he'll die. We know this. And doesn't. All right.
Very, very smart.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll do it. Akamarured. Finger guns. Let's go. That game was beautifully played by Akamarured. This is how you beat Dirt Rune, people. Take
GG.
notes.
Wow, so mannered. Sheepy, so nice. Meanwhile, Akamarured is just finger gunning away, giving them the business. Akamarured, just like it was for Meow, demonstrating why he is currently probably the favorite going to the Contenders Cup. And